This camera right here is on Amazon, currently being sold for 1200 USD, brand new. That's insane. This is the Panasonic Lumix S5, which was announced in 2020, September of 2020, and I got my unit in 2021 to upgrade my photography and videography game. It's also the camera that pushed my YouTube channel for it to be where it's at right now. So this camera played a vital role in my entire career. And in this video, I will be discussing why I think personally it's a good idea to take up the Panasonic Lumix S5, this almost 5-year-old camera, today in 2025. Let's go. When I got the Panasonic Lumix S5 back in 2021, I was asked by a lot of people why I chose to get Panasonic compared to, let's say, Canon or Sony. And I would always answer them that the value that I was getting for my money in the Panasonic Lumix S5 was comparable to no other camera within its niche back then and even right now. The Panasonic Lumix S5 is a full frame mirrorless camera with a 24 megapixel sensor, which makes it a perfect hybrid camera. You know, less megapixel is preferred for video cameras, more megapixel is preferred for photography cameras. That's why the Sony a7S III has 12 megapixels and the Sony a7 IV has around 40 something, I don't know, megapixels. More for photos, less for videos, because less equal more light on the sensor, more equal a higher resolution shot. So 24 was the sweet spot for capturing both video and photography content, because back then I was going between both, a little filmmaking here, a little video gigs here, and also taking my photos on the side, events photography, portraits, and capturing content for my YouTube channel and my personal brand. So the Panasonic Lumix S5, being a full frame 24 megapixel camera, was perfect for that. Also, it captures 10-bit color internally. The Sony a7C back then was only 8-bit color. My Lumix G7 was 8-bit. The Sony a7S III was 10-bit, but the price for the Sony a7S III back then was $3,500. I got this for $2,000, brand new, with the 20 to 60 millimeter kit lens. And that's all I needed back then for my videography and content creation. Over time, I added more lens for my photography work, but back then, that was a bang for buck. The Lumix S5 also has a ton of features, half of which I don't even use. I mean, this thing has dual SD card slots for a $2,000 camera. One of them is even a UHS 2 card. And remember, this was announced in 2020. Cameras being made right now don't have some of these features. This thing shoots anamorphic internally and also de-squeezes the anamorphic videos for you internally. It shoots up to 4K 60, but you will get an APS-C crop when shooting at 4K 60, but once you're shooting up to 4K 30 frames per second, you will get the full frame readout. You can also pair this with the Atomos Ninja V external recorder and get Apple ProRes RAW recorded from this camera and up to 6K resolution with an external recorder. You can also shoot Blackmagic RAW on this camera with the Blackmagic external recorder. And that's amazing for a camera that was being sold back then for $2,000. Right now you can get the Panasonic Lumix S5, as I mentioned earlier, brand new on Amazon for $1,200. And I've been scrolling eBay, I see people selling this camera used for even 700 bucks. 700 bucks for this, all the specs I just listed. And that's not even half of what this camera can do. Like, this thing has waveform built in, vector scope, it has time code, it has the anamorphic de-squeezing I mentioned before, it has shutter angle, it has a level gauge, all those stuff built into a $2,000 camera, and $2,000 back then. As I mentioned earlier, you can get this right now, brand new on Amazon for $1,200. Now, who is this camera for? Like, if you're a content creator and you're using your smartphone and you want to upgrade your game with a mirrorless camera to make your stuff more professional, to get higher quality, anytime someone asks me what camera they should get if they don't have a large budget, I always recommend the Lumix S5 because you can get it used, as I mentioned, for less than $1,000. And a lot of people used to complain, oh, the L-mount system doesn't have a lot of lenses. It's 2025. Any focal length you can mention is available within the L-mount ecosystem. It's not 2019 anymore. There's a lot more with Canon, there's a lot more with Nikon. I mean, Nikon and Canon have been making cameras and lenses for almost 100 years, so what do you expect? The Lumix L-mount ecosystem has almost all the focal lengths you can ever think of you'll need in a shooting scenario. There's no excuse anymore. The lens excuse is no longer an excuse. But there are also a few cons I've found with this camera since I've been using it for almost 5 years. The biggest of them all is the autofocus. It's not the best in the world. The Panasonic Lumix S5, it had an upgraded autofocus compared to all the cameras before it, but it still wasn't the best compared to like Sony, Canon, maybe even Nikon. Focus. I'm using the Lumix S5 and we know the autofocus isn't the best, so forgive me if I'm out of focus, guys. I found this flower and it looks pretty cool. I hope I'm in focus though because I'm using the Panasonic Lumix S5 and we know how the contrast detect autofocus is on the original S5. It works for me because I've used it to capture a lot of my content on this channel, music videos, photography work, corporate work. This camera has done it all. But sometimes I found it a bit not so fast and not sticking to the subject, and it is because this camera is using contrast detect autofocus compared to my nice Panasonic Lumix S5 2X over here, its predecessor, using phase detect autofocus. I think it's focusing on the Lumix S5 right now. Now it's back to my face. Now it's focusing to the Lumix S5 right now. So yeah, it wasn't the best, but it works. It gets the job done because if you scroll through my channel, all of my videos up to about December of 2024 was shot using this camera and they were pretty amazing jobs. The second thing I found with this camera is I use Samsung devices, so the Lumix Sync app would always run into problems when I'm using the wireless remote control with my phone on this camera. It works fine with my Lumix S5 2X because I'm using my phone right now on the ground to monitor what it is I'm recording. With this, if I go outside of the app, then go back into the app, I would lose connection to the app and I would have to reconnect to the Lumix S5. The third little issue I found, maybe it's my issue, when I'm using an external flash, a wireless flash in total dark scenarios, the focus might not stick when I'm capturing photos in the dark with a flash. But that's every camera. Every camera needs light to focus on the subject. That's how focus works. So I would get a little lamp or tally light to shine on my subject so I can grab focus, then take the photo. Yeah, with photo works, this camera is amazing. The photo never misses for photo work. It takes a while to stick onto the subject in video, but it never misses in photos. In conclusion, should you go take up the Panasonic Lumix S5 here in 2025? Absolutely. I wouldn't hesitate to say yes, go take up the Panasonic Lumix S5. There's a reason I still have mine, given the fact that I have a S5 2X in my setup. I still hold on to it. I could have sold it, but no, I'm not selling this. I'm gonna keep this until it breaks. And even then I would get a new one because it's cheap right now. So the Panasonic Lumix S5, it's a perfect grab in 2025 for photographers and also video creators if you're looking to up your game or to even add a second camera to your set to add to the amount of footage you're capturing, maybe another camera for another angle, a backup camera just in case something happens, a camera to shoot BTS. The S5 is a perfect choice to take up in 2025 to shoot high quality and professional content. I'm Chevaughn Beckford, and if you like hearing or watching videos about Lumix, filmmaking, photography, content creation, feel free to hit the subscribe button and the like button so the algorithm can like me some more and push my videos to others. Chevaughn Beckford, go buy the S5 right now. Signing out.